Hey Goblin, you've been really practicing those war drums.
I'll bring the generic Goblin noise!
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further, as you can use the promo code MTGMudsta to get you 5% off anything on the site. Or if you're in Canada like me, you can use the same promo code at Multizone to get 10% off your orders of singles. If cards aren't what you're looking for, Original Magic Art has playmats, tokens, and sweet art that you can use that same promo code to help you get 5% off your order there. If you're looking to bling out your cards, using Alter Sleeves is a great way to do so, and you can click the affiliate link in my About section to help out the channel as you make an order. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin gang. Hey gang, I just want to bring to your attention that Johannes, Voss, and Original Magic Art are teaming up. This will be the first time that some of his beautiful art for cards like Gift of Orzhova, the Dog Plains, the Kaldheim Island, Prismatic Bridge, and Carpet of Flowers are available on playmats. The Kickstarter is running from September 13th until October 13th, and you can help support it and my channel at the same time by using the affiliate link below. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game takes us back to Multizone, and Kilby has brought a new Wulfgar deck. He keeps Leyline Tyrant, Commune with Lava, Beastmaster Ascension, Druid of Purification, Cinder Glade, Forest, and Exotic Orchard. Kevin is playing Klothys, keeping 3 forests, a mountain, Evolving Wilds, Myriad Landscape, and Sylvan Library. New to the channel is Nico, playing Grist, keeping 2 swamps, Ill-Gotten Gains, Death Sprout, Skullclamp, Necroblossom Snarl, and a Caustic Wasp. Also new to the channel is Habib, playing Trelasarra, Moondancer, and he keeps a Plains, 3 forests, Plummet, Compelled Duel, and Springmare Servan. Kilby wins the die roll and starts us off. Kilby draws and plays an Exotic Orchard. Habib plays a Plains. Nico draws and drops a Necroblossom Snarl, revealing a Swamp. He taps it, casting Skullclamp, and passes to Kevin. Kevin plays a tap Myriad Landscape, passing. Kilby plays a Mountain, and passes. Habib plays a Forest, and then taps 2 for his commander, Trelasarra. Nico draws and plays a Swamp. He taps both of his lands for Scroll Rack, and then ships it to Kevin. Kevin plays a Forest, and taps both of his lands for 2 mana as well, and he casts Sylvan Library. Kilby plays a Forest, passing. Habib plays another Plains, and then taps 3 mana for a Sternheim Courser. Nico plays a Swamp in his main phase, and taps 3 mana to bring out his commander, Grist. He then upticks the Walker, and mills 1, making an insect token. Since the card he mills is an insect card, he repeats the process, making another token, but then mills a land and has to stop. He passes to Kevin. Kevin uses his library trigger on his draw, keeping all of them and losing 8 life. He plays a Mountain, and then taps enough to crack the landscape to go and find 2 basics, and passes. Kilby plays a Cinder Glade as his land for turn, and taps 4 mana to cast Druid of Purification. As it enters, Kilby picks the library, while Habib picks the Scroll Rack. Nico decides to not pick anything, and Kevin picks the Skullclamp. All of these permanents then get destroyed, and Kilby passes. Habib plays a Forest for his land drop, and then pays 2 for a Story Seeker. He then enchants the Dwarf with a Spectral Steel, which costs 1 less, and goes to combat. Trelasarra goes at Kevin, while the Courser goes at Grist. Both take the hits, and Habib then passes. Nico's main phase has him upticking Grist, revealing a non-insect card, so he only gets to do it once and make 1 token. He plays a Verdant Catacombs, cracking it and announcing he'll take a total of 3 to find an overgrown tomb and have it come in untapped. He then taps enough mana for Ill-Gotten Gains, and the table discard their hands and then return 3 cards from their graveyard to hand, and Nico exiles Ill-Gotten Gains. Kevin untaps and draws, playing a Forest. He enchants Overgrowth onto a Mountain, and then taps it for 2 green and a red, using the green for Sylvan Library again, and passes turn. Kilby plays a Forest, and then taps 5 for Wulfgar, passing to Habib. Habib plays a Forest for turn, and taps 3 for a Springmare Servan. It comes in, gaining him 2 life, which triggers his commander, putting a +1/+1 counter onto it, and letting Habib scry 1. Habib then foretells a card and goes to combat. Trelasarra goes back at Kevin this time for 3, and the Courser goes at Grist again. Both take the hit once more, and Habib then ships it to Nico. Nico pays 2 for Scroll Rack again, and activates it, swapping cards from his hand for those on top. He plays out Skull Clamp once more, and then drops a Golgari Rot Farm which comes in tapped, and bounces a land back to his hand. He then passes after not activating Grist. Kevin draws with his library again, and keeps 1 extra card, losing 4 life. He plays out a Fertile Ground on one of his mountains, and then taps enough to bring out Klothys. He then taps 1 green for an Elephant Grass, and passes to Kilby. Kilby taps 3 for Beastmaster Ascension in his main phase, and moves directly to combat. He swings Wulfgar at Nico, and the Druid at Kevin. Instead of the normal 2, the Ascension actually gains 4 counters thanks to Wulfgar doubling on attack triggers, and Nico chumps Wulfgar with a token, while Kevin takes the hit. Habib taps 5 in his main phase to bring out a planar ally. He then moves to combat, swinging the Dwarf at Kevin, dealing 4 and gaining 4. This has Trelasarra gaining another +1/+1 counter, and Habib scries 1 once more. Nico plays a Swamp, although it's a bit glared out because of the overhead lighting, which is the bane of my existence, and he taps 3 for a Grave Purge. He puts a bunch of insects on top of his library, and then draws a card. Once that's resolved, he activates Grist, making a token and hitting an insect, repeating the process. He reveals another insect, but then hits a Golgari Signet, and it ends. Nico then clamps a token, drawing 2 as it dies, and passes to Kevin. Kevin pays the 1 for his cumulative upkeep cost on the Elephant Grass, and uses his library as he moves to his draw step. He doesn't keep any extras, and he resolves his Klothys trigger, and has Nico exile Vorpede from his graveyard, dealing 2 to each of Kevin's opponents and gaining him 2 life. He then plays a Forest for turn, and passes. Kilby plays a Rogue's Passage for turn, and taps 4 for a Beast Whisperer. Moving to combat, the Druid goes at Nico, while Wulfgar goes at Habib and gets 2 melee triggers. Once more, 4 counters are added to the Ascension, making it now active. Nico doesn't want to take the 7 and chumps with a token, while Habib blocks with his Springmane Servant. With nothing else, Kilby then passes turn. Habib untaps and draws for turn. He casts Ranger class, making a 2/2 Wolf token, and then levels it up to level 2. Habib then swings the planar ally at Kilby, and his commander at Nico. He puts a +1/+1 counter onto Trelasarra because of the level 2 Ranger class, and Habib ventures into the Lost Mine of Phandelver, scrying 1. Nico and Kilby just take the hits then, and Habib passes. At the end of turn, Nico activates Scroll Rack, swapping some cards from his hand for those on top. Nico upticks Grist in his main phase, getting the ability twice since he hits an insect and then a land token, making 2 insect tokens in total. He casts a Cryptolith Rites, and then taps one of his older insect tokens for mana, and uses that mana to clamp it, drawing 2 as it dies. He then does it again. Nico then pays 3 mana for his own Beastmaster Ascension because great minds think alike, and then suspends a Gaia's Will and passes to Kevin. Kevin untaps and pays the 2 for Elephant Grass's upkeep. He then uses the library again as he draws, but doesn't keep any extras. He moves to his main phase, and puts out a Collector's Oof, and then remembers he has a Klothys trigger now, exiling Kilby's Leyline Tyrant, which has his opponents taking 2, while he gains 2, and he then passes to Kilby. Kilby floats some mana before playing out a Gruul Turf, and the tapped land bounces a land back to his hand. He then casts a Commune with Lava, putting 4 into the X, and he exiles Rootbound Crag, Chaos Warp, Garruk's Uprising, and fires Yavimaya. Moving to combat, Wulfgar goes at Habib, and the Druid once more goes at Nico, which has Wulfgar gaining 2 melee triggers. Habib chumps with the Wolf token, and Nico takes the hit for 7. Kilby also adds more counters to the Ascension, which is largely irrelevant, but you never know. Habib plays out a Horizon Seeker in his main phase, and moves to combat. The planar ally goes at Kilby, and Habib delves into the dungeon once more, making a Goblin token, and adding a +1/+1 counter to it because of Ranger class. With nothing else, he passes. Nico plays a land and casts Zulapur Cutthroat. He then casts Harrow, sacrificing a land and going to find 2 basics to put to the field untapped. He then taps the rest of his lands and taps 2 of the insects because of the Cryptolith rights to help cast God Eternal Bontu. With the God Eternal entering, he sacrifices the 2 tapped tokens, his Scroll Rack, and the Skull Clamp, drawing 4 cards as they get sacrificed. He also drains his opponents twice because of the Zulaport Cutthroat. He then activates Grist, hitting Arcane Signet, so he stops after the 1. With nothing else, he passes to Kevin. Kevin thinks about keeping the grass, but decides to let it go. He uses his library trigger during his draw step, and keeps the extra ones, taking another 8. He then exiles another creature from Nico's yard because of the suspended guy's will, and gains 2 life, and each of his opponents take 2. Kevin then plays out an Argothian Enchantress, and then a Stethian Champion. Once those are out, he follows up with a Mana Barbs, drawing 2 cards from the Enchantresses. He plays a Forest Return, and passes to Kilby. Kilby plays a Rootbound Crag from exile as his land for turn, and taps 2 lands for 3 mana for Garruk's Uprising, taking 2 from the Mana Barbs. It enters, and draws him a card. Kilby then takes another 2 as he casts Robber of the Rich, drawing from the Whisperer. He then takes 2 more, casting a Gruul Signet, and moves to combat. Wulfgar and the Beast Whisperer go at Habib, and the Robber goes at Nico, and the Druid heads at Kevin. Wulfgar gets 2 melee triggers, and because of the Robber's attack trigger, Nico, who has 2 more cards than Kilby does, has to exile his top 2 cards. Kevin blocks with his God, and the Champion to stop the damage, while Habib blocks with the Story Seeker on Wulfgar, and Nico declares no blocks. Before moving to damage, Habib casts Kaya's Onslaught for the Foretell cost, targeting the Seeker, and losing 1 from the Mana Barbs. In response though, Kilby uses Ram Through to have Wulfgar deal 14 damage to the Story Seeker before the combat trick can resolve, but loses 1 from Mana Barbs. Because Wulfgar also has Trample from Garruk's Uprising, Ram Through does the excess damage directly to Habib, dealing 10. Nico then takes 7, while Habib takes 22, most of which is from Wulfgar, and with nothing else, Kilby passes turn. Habib draws and taps 3 mana and takes 3 from the Mana Barbs. That mana goes towards his Sylvan Shepherd, and he goes to combat. He swings most of his board at Kilby, getting a counter on his commander from Ranger class, and ventures further into the dungeon from the planar ally, this time draining his opponents for 1, and gaining 1. This drain has Trelasarra gaining another +1/+1 counter, and scrying Habib 1 card deeper. At this point though, it's enough damage for Kilby to be taken out, and with nothing else, Habib passes turn. Nico plays a land for turn, and plays a Morph creature, and takes 3 from Mana Barbs. He then upticks Grist, hitting a non-insect token, and stopping only at 1 insect token and loyalty counter. Moving to combat, he goes at Kevin with Bontu, which has Kevin blocking with his commander, and the Oof because it has Menace. Nico decides to assign lethal damage to the Oof, and then loses more life in his second main phase as he casts Commander's Sphere, followed by an Altar of Dementia. He then brings out Nantuko Elder, which has him losing only 1 life because Rot Farm makes 2 mana. He then passes to Kevin. Kevin uses his library trigger, but at such a low life has to put 2 back. He exiles another creature in Nico's yard, dealing 2 to his opponents and gaining 2 life. He then takes 1 as he taps a mountain with Overgrowth on it, making 3 mana, and uses Beast Within, and targets Nico's altar. Nico responds, announcing he'll sacrifice 5 creatures to the altar, which will trigger the Zulaport Cutthroat. Kevin answers this with a Tarka's Command, picking the modes of dealing 3 to each of his opponents, and turn off life gain. Nico then responds by sacrificing the Morph and the Cutthroat to gain 2 life and survive the damage from the command, which is enough to keep him in the game at 1 life, while Habib dies. Nico then mills himself for the needed amount of cards, and makes a 3/3 Beast token, as the altar gets destroyed. At this point though, Kevin can't swing through the Beast token, and Nico assures Kevin he'll use Grist's ultimate to take him out once he passes turn. Kevin does swing because that's what you do, and Nico has enough to block, and they then shake on it as Nico's declared the winner. Game review time. So I've seen Kloth, I've seen Rondris doing very well, but I had yet to see a Wulfgar deck in action, and boy was I impressed. I'm super glad that Kilby managed to put the deck together, and there were so many cards that I didn't realize had on-attack triggers, so it's really cool to see them exploring that design space. In a similar fashion, Grist is a unique card with that weird ability at the top, And I like how it forces you kind of into insect tribal, despite the fact that there aren't that many good insects. I think there's Giant Ataphage and Vorapede is the best ones, but beyond that you get to run a lot of kinda Kevin's Klothys deck didn't do a whole heck of a lot, but I see the potential there. Basically either doing damage and gaining you life, or gaining you mana for only a 3 mana investment is pretty powerful. It's a shame that his Enchantress package only got off later on in the game. I was also remarkably surprised with how well Habib's deck did, considering he told me that he made it basically out of his draft chaff, and if it said it gained life, he slammed it in the deck. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.